podcast is a production of Widener Law Commonwealth in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. For more information, visit commonwealthlaw.widener.edu/podcast. Now here's your host, Julie Massing.
Welcome to our podcast. Thanks to all the listeners out there today. Today we are going to be talking with Allura Alonso, who is our financial aid representative, about the big question of, now you've been accepted to law school, so how do I end up affording this? What happens next? So welcome, Allura.
Hi there. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be having this conversation with you about the financial aid process. So to answer your question, I hear that a lot. How can I afford law school? What things are out there for me? It's a lot different from undergraduate to graduate in the sense that for undergraduate students, they need parent information because a lot of times they're still dependent. There are need-based programs and non-need-based programs. The nice thing for law students is they are considered independent students. So you no longer need parent information. It's all of their information. And most of the aid is non-need based. So for our students, it doesn't matter if they're working or they're not working. They're still eligible for both of the federal loans, which is extremely helpful, especially with our extended division students. So they can still be working, but not have to worry about paying for school out of pocket.
Okay. So when that student comes to you, what will they need to bring you? What kind of information, what kind of materials to get the ball rolling with financial aid?
So the nice thing is with that is the first thing that they do, and most students are aware, is the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. So for our current students, they're going to go ahead and complete the 17-18 FAFSA, just like the incoming students will do the same thing. That's the first and probably most important step. That we typically get those once a week. So that's the thing that takes probably the longest. The other things that they'll have to complete are the data form. What that is that tells us important information, the division that they're going to be in, whether that's regular or extended, what budget we should put them in, whether they're going to be living in an apartment or a house, or if they're commuting from a family member's home. It also tells us their intent to take the federal direct unsubsidized loan. For that, that's $20,500 a year on the maximum. They'll also need to complete a master promissory note on studentloans.gov for that same loan. Then the other thing that they'll need to complete is the federal direct graduate plus loan application on that same website. They'll complete a master promissory note for that loan as well.
Okay. So now it sounds like there's a fair amount of moving pieces within the financial aid application process, but their very first step is to fill out that FAFSA and then go to those additional websites that you mentioned.
Correct. Absolutely. Always start with your FAFSA, and then we send a financial aid welcome packet. Okay. So that comes out pretty quickly. I would say within the first week or two that they're accepted. We send that to their house via your standard U.S. Postal Service. That has a welcome letter from us just telling them congratulations, we're excited to get to know you. It has the data form in it, and then it also has a checklist explaining all the steps that they need to take.
Okay. And so now we went over where they find these documents. And is there a time frame, the best time frame to apply for financial aid for law school?
The nice thing is that it is a rolling basis for our incoming students. For returning students, we set a priority deadline of April 1st. That is there for the only need-based program for federal work-study funds. Incoming students are not eligible for federal work-study funds. However, we tell them to go ahead and submit those things as soon as possible, especially the FAFSA and the data form. The Grad Plus loan application, they must wait till after April 1st. All students, because there is a credit check involved with that, and it can expire before the loans disperse in August. So we don't even allow that to be accessible until after April 1st. At that point, then they can go ahead and apply for that. The nice thing is those things are a pretty quick turnaround. We get those applications within 24 to 48 hours.
And then what is your processing time within the office? What can a student expect? How long can they expect to wait until maybe they have their complete financial aid package from the time they've been accepted, from the time that they've applied?
That's a great question. So with the incoming students, we work on packaging them as soon as now. That process has already begun. Now, right now, it's all suggested aid. because we're still waiting on data forms. They still haven't applied for their Grad Plus loans yet. So once that April 1st deadline comes, we're going to go ahead and work on our summer students who are taking summer classes, which are returning students and also incomings at the same time. They should get their award letters. I would say I will be running those pretty frequently, maybe a couple times a week. And then once that happens, they'll know what their package is. And if they haven't done some of the things they need to, that'll also tell them, hey, where's my Grad Plus loan? Well, they didn't complete the application, so we didn't put that into their financial aid package. The incoming students, like I said, we're doing those kind of as they come. And then the rest of the returning students will be packaged probably later in the summer. So I would say at this point, probably a few weeks or so, and then after that, it'll get a lot faster.
Okay. And just for clarification for our audience, we are at about the end of March as we're recording this. So students are beginning to be accepted. They are beginning to fill out those applications and getting ready to come in for the fall. And now, do you have a general amount of aid that is given, or is that based per student? Is that a very individual thing that they would get?
So we build what's called a cost of attendance. The most common name for that is a budget. We have 4 different budgets, 2 for regular division and 2 for extended division. So regular division is considered the full-time students. They're taking between 12 and 15 credits. And our extended division are considered part-time. They take between 8 and 11. For financial aid purposes, they're all considered full-time. So we have a budget for the students living in their own apartment or house, and we have a budget for students that are commuting. So if it's a regular division student living off campus, they're going to have the biggest budget because they're taking the most credits, and also we allow for housing, transportation, all of those school-related expenses. The students that are in extended division commuting, they have the smallest budget because they have the least amount of credits and less financial responsibilities, we'll say.
Okay. And now you kind of touched on this a little bit, but I wanted to ask a little bit about general living expenses and how are those considered when making the financial aid? You did talk a little bit about how our extended division students may not have that housing allowance or that as much of a transportation allowance. How is that determined within the financial aid package?
So what we do is we do research every single year to update our cost of attendance. So we update the tuition and fees if those have changed at all from the previous year. But then we do extensive research on housing. We do a survey every couple of years of our students to find out where they're living, how much they're spending on food, utilities, rent, transportation, books, to give us a sense of, okay, what are our students truly paying? And then in the years that we don't do that, we still continue to do our housing analysis. To figure out transportation, for example, we use the current IRS mileage rate. We have a set number of miles that we calculate per week, and then we get those figures for the month. The biggest misconception is that the cost of attendance is for the year. It's for the school year, which is 9 months, not 12. So students oftentimes get confused because they still have rent to pay for those 3 months that they're not in school. That's where summer classes come into play, or them working, work study, things of that nature. So to determine that, we just do a lot of research to make sure that we are giving our students the most accurate and what we truly think it costs to come to school. We also just look at other competitive law schools to make sure that we are affordable and that we are staying in line, which we always do.
Okay. So now, are students only eligible for loans? I know in undergrad you're eligible for a lot of different things, but it seems in graduate school you may only be eligible for loans. And who disperses those loans?
Okay, great question. So there are merit-based scholarships here at Widener Law Commonwealth, and the admissions office handles those at the time of acceptance. So that goes into the financial aid package. There are also other scholarship opportunities. We have endowed scholarships. Those applications are out right now, and they're due April 7th. There are also outside scholarship opportunities that I have a database of over 300 that we encourage our students to apply for anything because, once again, scholarships are free money. They don't have to repay those. The 2 most common types of aid that you see for graduate students, like you mentioned, are loans. They're both non-need-based. There's also federal work study as well, which is the only need-based program. However, it is a very small amount, and there's only so many students that are able to receive that. Now, some students utilize the payment plan, or they are working, so they choose to pay some of that themselves. It's really dependent on each student. But yes, I would say the majority are the two federal direct loans, which are the unsubsidized and Graduate Plus loans.
Now, can you explain the work-study portion of this? How do students apply for that? How would they know if they're eligible? Does that go back to the FAFSA form that they've already submitted? Or how do they know that they're eligible for work-study?
You're right in the fact that the FAFSA tells us, yes, that's their intent. There's question number 31 that asks, are you interested in federal work-study? Them marking yes to that question tells us, yes, they are interested. That doesn't mean they're guaranteed to get it, because unfortunately it is the federal government sends us that amount. And then we match so much of it, and then we look at a report that I run. They have to submit their FAFSA and their data form by April 1st, and it is a first-come, first-served basis. We also try to give preference to 3 and 4Ls because it is going to be their last year, and they also must have a 2.3 GPA to ensure that they're going to be moving on as well, because they have to be enrolled to receive federal work-study funds. So that's how we determine that. We run that report. We look and see who's the first come, first serve out of all of those things, if they've all met them, and then we award. Now, it's for the year, so they can use it summer, fall, or spring, or all three. Each student's different. A lot of students, though, their plans may change. So a lot of times I do have to do a second round of awarding. So some students may decline it, and then the opportunity for some other students to receive that.
Okay. And now you touched a little bit on scholarships. I know that you said that we have some both internally here at Widener Law Commonwealth and also the database of external scholarships. Can you first talk a little bit about the external scholarships that are available and how students may find those?
Absolutely. So our database is on our Campus Cruiser page. So if you go to Campus Cruiser and go to the Offices tab, I think we are the 6th office down. Okay. It's Commonwealth Law-Financial Aid is the name of the office. When you click on it, whether you're logged in or you're not logged in, so there's a public welcome or a member welcome. Right in the center of that page, you're going to see Outside Scholarship Database. And it's nice and color-coded for you. 6 different colors, which coordinate with 6 different categories. So there's certain scholarships just for veterans, general, diversity, PA residents, non-PA residents, etc. So if you are a non-PA resident, for example, coming to Widener Law Commonwealth, you're going to look at the non-PA resident scholarships versus the PA ones. So it helps you to customize what you're looking for. The deadlines are all different. The requirements are all different. A lot of them are very general, though. Some of them range from 500. I've seen some as much as 10,000. We have writing scholarships that are nationally recognized on there. We also have just small local bar association scholarships. A lot of times they ask for maybe a writing sample, a resume, letters of recommendation. It's very standard in the basic format, but then they can all vary in that as well.
And for our audience out there, we're going to make sure that we have that link to our financial aid page that Allura was just talking about so that you can click on that and see if there's any there that would apply to you. And now you also talked about some that are through Widener Law Commonwealth that are subsidized through us. Can you give us a little more detail on those?
Absolutely. So the first one I mentioned was the merit-based scholarships from the admissions office. When you are at your time of acceptance, what happens is they review you for any merit-based scholarships, and they will send those out at the same time that you're accepted. The other set of scholarships are the endowed scholarships. Those are through alumni and friends of Widener donating money, and they're essentially put into a fund, and over time, they become endowed, and therefore we're able to offer those each year. Now, they vary in the range of how much they are, so it's hard to say whether it's going to be $500 or maybe one's $2,500, but right now I believe we have about 7. 2 of them are veteran specific, which is really nice that we have those for our veterans. They're new scholarships as well. The other ones are general. We have one that's a diversity scholarship that was a former dean of the law school, Dean Ammons, who that scholarship is there, and that's always a $500 scholarship. But the nice thing is about those endowed scholarships is all it asks for is a resume, a 1-page personal statement, and a completed application. If you want to provide letters of recommendation, you can. And we have a scholarship committee that meets after those applications are due, and they review to determine the students that they feel should receive those scholarships.
Wonderful. So now the next question is going to be, so now I'm all set. I know what my package looks like. I know how I'm going to be able to afford law school. But now after I graduate, how do I repay those? What does repayment look like? Is it different for every student? Or do most people take kind of a comparable amount? Or how does that look?
That's another really good question. So one of the things our students do is they have to sit through exit counseling about a month before they graduate. We try to do those in about 3 different group sessions. We give them their personal loan history of all their federal loans from the National Student Loan Database System, or NSLDS. We'll also give them instructions on how to access that after. We give them the federal exit counseling booklet, and then we go through a PowerPoint presentation of what their class's debt looked like, how many people borrowed, what the average loan debt is for their class. We explain the federal loans, what the current interest rates are, what the past interest rates were for when they were enrolled. Then we also explain each repayment plan. And like you said, yes, it is different for every student. There's the standard 10-year repayment plan that your servicer will automatically put you on 6 months after you graduate. However, there are 4 different income-driven repayment plans. Basically, they are just payments that are tied to your income. It's either 10, 15, or 20% of your discretionary income, typically, depending on the plan. The repayment term can be 20, 25 years, typically. And after that repayment time, any loan debt remaining is forgiven. A lot of our students try to take advantage of those, especially just starting out, or maybe if they decide to go into public service. There's also the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, which a lot of our students, especially here, try to take advantage of. It's not a repayment plan, it's a program. Now, any of the income-driven repayment plans are eligible under that program. But if you're working in an eligible full-time public service position, after 10 years, any remaining balance on your loans is forgiven and it's non-taxable income. So that's a nice benefit for our students because yes, law students have the ability to accrue a significant amount of debt. Even with borrowing responsibly, scholarships, things of that nature, it's still important to be thinking about that. So we always try to make sure we fully answer those questions in the exit counseling sessions, but also our students know to come talk to us whenever they have questions. We still get calls from graduates, which is nice, to catch up, see how they're doing, and then maybe they'll have specific questions. We always give them the best advice that we can, but they will have to talk with their servicer or guarantor at some point, whether they want to talk about consolidation or signing up for an income-driven repayment plan.
Okay, excellent. So now I just want to ask one question. Sometimes students, I know in undergrad, will get a private loan. Is that an option for law school students, or should they look more closely at the FAFSA and the aid that's provided that way rather than a private loan?
Private loans are absolutely available to our students. However, I never offer counseling on the private loans. I only offer counseling on the federal loans because I know what the terms and conditions are of those loans. I can explain to them about the repayment, about their 6-month grace period. Private loans are all different, so each of their terms and conditions are going to vary. The other thing is I have really no way of seeing or telling them what their private loan debt is other than the loans that they took here. Mm-hmm. With that, you can't consolidate your private loans with your federal loans through the federal government. Now, you could probably do that with a private loan servicer. You just get into some very tricky situations there. And it's a lot easier for me to monitor and help you with your federal loans than your private loans. Now, everybody's different. So for some people, the private loan may be of more of an advantage. However, for the federal loans, for the majority of our students, that's what we typically see, and that's what I will counsel on.
Now, you had mentioned a little bit, we do have 2 scholarships available for veterans, but I wanted to just kind of touch base with that. Is the financial aid process different for a veteran, and do we participate in the Yellow Ribbon program?
Those are great questions. So we are very, very happy to be such a veteran-friendly school and that we do participate in the Yellow Ribbon program at 100%. The nice thing is it's really not too different in terms of they are still eligible for their loans if they would like to take them. But if they are yellow ribbon eligible, sometimes they don't need to take loans, even just for living expenses. They might not need to do that. The only thing they do is they work with our certifying official in the registrar's office, and they provide her with their certificate of eligibility from the Veterans Administration or the VA. And that tells her exactly what they're eligible for. So it could say that maybe they're only 80% eligible for their GI Bill benefits. So our certifying official is able to work with our office to determine how much and what that looks like. The nice thing is we do communicate. We work next door to each other, so we can really help that student figure out exactly what they need to borrow, if they need to borrow at all.
Okay, wonderful. And I think you may have answered most of my questions. Do you have anything else that you wanted to add about financial aid? I know that I see students come in and out of your office all the time, all with smiles on their faces. So I know that students are always welcome to come in and ask you questions if they have any concerns about their financial aid at all.
Absolutely. I think it is a little bit scary for students when you think about undergrad, where you can get different types of grants and only take certain types of loans. And for graduate students, it really is predominantly loans. However, we really stress borrowing financially responsibly and debt management, thinking about that ahead of time. I'm always here to map out anything with you. I can show you pretty close to the dollar, give or take due to rounding and disbursement fees, because those change as well, what your refund would be. So instead of taking out maximum loans, we can really customize that for you. And I always love to talk with students, especially incoming students. I think it's really important for you to at least talk to me on the phone or send me an email so I can just explain things to you so that you are aware. And I think it helps make that process easier down the road. And of course, we're always here. We're always excited. And if you have questions, please, please, please contact me.
Okay. Hey, Allura, as we wrap up our podcast here, I always like to ask one fun question. So what is your favorite vacation spot as we head into the spring and summer here?
Well, that's a fun question. I do like that. So my favorite vacation spot, I would say, is Disney and Orlando. Oh, and Universal as well. I was there for my honeymoon the other month, and
congratulations.
Thank you very much. It was very magical, just like they say. And we just had a wonderful, wonderful time. The people that work there are just generally excited to be there, which I've never experienced before going to an amusement park or anything else like that. So it was a wonderful time. And of course, it's Florida and it's beautiful weather. So it really is just a magical place.
Wonderful. Allura, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. And to our listeners out there, we'll make sure that we put the contact information for our financial aid office out there. We'll make sure to include a phone number and also an email. And we want to make sure that you go ahead and listen to some of our other podcasts that are out there. And we will see you next time. Thanks for joining us.
Widener University Commonwealth Law School is the Pennsylvania capital's only law school, with 3 specialized centers of legal scholarship through its Law and Government Institute, Environmental Law and Sustainability Center, and Business Advising Program. Widener Law Commonwealth offers an exceptional learning experience that is personal, practical, and professional. Visit commonwealthlaw.widener.edu for more information. This podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute legal or financial advice.